Senator Moran.
Mr. Chairman, thank you and the ranking member. Thank you for, now I'm pleased to have the opportunity to work with the two of you and others on this subcommittee in my debut appearance at THEAD. Mr. Secretary, welcome. Thank you for the series of telephone conversations we've had in the last few weeks, and I appreciate your presence in front of the committee today. I'd follow up on what the ranking member had to say about the Drive Safe Act. That's a piece of legislation that I introduced with a number of my colleagues. She indicated the lack of use of that program to date. I was glad to hear you indicate you're pursuing changes, improvements, alterations in the program to make sure that we actually get a lot of young drivers into this profession. And so I would just reiterate my support. Thank you for yours. And if we can be of help in trying to accomplish the goals that we mutually share, please put me to work. I'm surprised or disappointed that I'm once again talking about hair follicle testing, which has been a topic of conversation since the FAST Act of 2015 was passed, alternative drug testing for truck drivers. The 2015 FAST Act required HHS to issue scientific and technical guidelines, HHS, for hair testing as a method of truck driving testing program with 1 year of its enactment. Mr. Secretary, I wonder if you had any update on conversations between FMCSA and HHS, anything that is progressing or moving this opportunity along?
Let me get an update for you on that, Senator. As you note, there's a dependency between our authorities and FMCSA and a finding that would have to come from HHS. And we stand ready to work on that as that finding comes through. But I will make sure to determine the latest state of play there and update you accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me bring that to your attention. Secretary, the short line freight industry is critical to communities across Kansas and across the country. A lot of economic needs. Rail is important to me in Kansas for a number of reasons, but one of them is it's how we haul agriculture commodities from where it's grown to where it's exported or consumed or further refined. The CRISI program has been invaluable in helping address an estimated $12 billion in investments that's needed to ensure that the industry can modernize and meet the need of the country. Any opportunity that you'd like to take now to discuss your commitment to the CRISI program?
Well, let me begin by saying we're committed to the CRISI program. We recognize its importance in both the economic and the safety responsibilities that we have when it comes to rail infrastructure. And I would note that among the $1.4 billion requested for FRA's discretionary programs reflected in the President's budget, there's $510 million identified for CRISI grants, which when you add that to the $1 billion in advance appropriations that came through IIJA would represent a total of over $1.5 billion for the coming fiscal year. And as you note, that program can support the safety, the reliability, the efficiency of these railroads that are so important in every part of the country. We've seen the impact, the result, and the enthusiasm in local communities for what those represent. Passenger rail can even benefit from that when it improves rail that is used by Amtrak and hosted and owned by the freight railroads. And you will see us continuing to move full steam ahead on the use and the deployment of these funds.
Thank you. That's been one of the, I hadn't thought of it until you said it, and I'd highlight it that it is one of the ways that we've been able to improve Amtrak service through our state is through CRISI grants. My final question, Chairman, is the continued development of advanced air mobility, I think, is hugely important. The AAM Coordination and Leadership Act, which is another one of the pieces of legislation that I've introduced, it became law, introduced it with Senator Sinema. It establishes a working group led by DOT to advance this emerging technology. It was signed into law last year. Is the department fully engaged to ensure that the success of this working group will occur with its particular focus on ability for passenger carrying aircraft that we intended in that legislation? And I would ask that you, in addition to that question, I'd also ask for your commitment that you and the department would provide me with updates throughout the process of this committee doing its work.
We'll make sure to do that, and we recognize the enormous promise of advanced air mobility. and that it creates a number of novel questions and challenges that are different in kind than what the FAA and the administration are used to managing. The committee, that process that you referenced, and the agenda of the FAA more broadly to prepare the airspace for this is high on our minds, and we'll continue pursuing it in ways that meet our safety mission while also being compatible with the competitive and prompt development of these new technologies so that America is a leader as we're accustomed to being in aviation writ large.
Prompt, Mr. Secretary, is my goal in raising this topic. We face a competitive world, and we want the United States to be the leader in this emerging technology.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Bozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here today and testifying. I know you've got a lot going on. I've really just got a couple questions.